Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. Joining me today is New York Times bestselling author Kate White to talk about her new psychological thriller, I Came Back for You. Welcome to the show, Kate.
Thanks so much, Tracy.
I tell you, I mentioned this before I hit the record button, but I love this book on so many different levels. I know Lisa Unger talked about it being an elegant and gripping whodunit, which I totally agree with.
Oh,
But
thanks so much.
you also gave readers what they really love in psychological thrillers, which is that beautiful twist towards the end and which was amazing. I did not see that coming at all, and I know we can't talk about any of this, so I'm very careful here. But the other thing that I really loved is that we got to learn more about kind of like your home away from home, Uruguay. Or I knew I was going to say it wrong. Uruguay.
No, you did good. You did good.
Uruguay. I was curious because I've heard you talk about on other interviews. Have you been aching to set a story, at least partially, as you did in this book, aching to set a story there?
I haven't been. I love Uruguay so much. I've lived here for 15 years in the winter with my husband. When I was running Cosmopolitan magazine, we bought it with the idea that we could spend winters here because I was planning to leave in a couple of years. And yeah, I never sort of saw it working in a psychological thriller. But my agent said to me one day, Kate, have you ever thought of setting a book in Uruguay? And I said, well, I wouldn't send a whole book here, but maybe a small part of it. And I said, but do you think that would engage readers? And she said, yeah, I think, there are more books today that have done well, that bring in some place that is outside of the United States. Like I loved Andrea Bartz's book, We Were Never Here, which takes place in Chile. I loved the last Kimberly Bell book that took place in Paris. And so I thought, and Lucy Foley's taken us to Paris. She's taking us to Ireland. So I thought, yeah, maybe I could do it. So the first six chapters are set in Uruguay. And I loved writing them, even though I hadn't thought I was ever going to do it. Once I made the decision, it was been very enjoyable to do for me.
Yeah, I could sense your love of that country in the way that you wrote about it. And we talked about you hear and see parakeets out your window and off your patio and things like that. It's just it sounds so amazing. And just even the individuals that your protagonist interacted with there in the country, it just seems it, I guess I could almost feel like we were there through your words, which I
Well,
really
I did
appreciated.
steal a few names from people I know
Did
here,
you?
but some of them don't speak English, so I know they won't read it. But I didn't steal anything pertinent. Well, the thing about Uruguay that I love so much is that it's a land of rolling hills, very beautiful, lots of big sky. It reminds me a little of Kenya because there is
Oh,
so much big sky. There aren't mountains here. And as the main character Bree says in the book, it's both tranquil, the setting, but also expansive. So it both relaxes you, but it also stirs you. And that's one of the things I've often felt about it, that I feel very feel unstressed here, and also very, I mean, just serene. But at the same
yeah.
time, moments when I look at the vistas that I feel like, wow, it is stirring something in me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm glad you have that place for yourself, you and your family, because you have to find moments to just kind of decompress and unwind and kind of get away from, as they say, the rat race type of thing. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you have that.
Yes, and things are so stressful today with the politics, AI, everything. And what's interesting here is that people they're just not bothered by a lot of that. They don't have much awareness really of what's totally going on in the United States because it's not important to them. In fact, sometimes they're so detached in a great way. After we moved here, I was at this wonderful little beach shack restaurant one day, and the owner said to a friend of mine, "Is that Sharon Stone?" And I was like, wow, she must
That's
really be
wonderful.
removed from the US culture if she thinks I'm Sharon Stone.
Actually, I can totally see it. I can. I know you. I can. I can totally see that. That's great. That's great. Well, before we dive more deeply into I Came Back for You, what can you, do you mind like just telling us a little bit about yourself? Just whatever you want to share. We know that you spend part of your time in Uruguay. What else can you share with us?
Oh, thanks, Tracy. That's I always enjoy just giving a little capsule because I feel like I've had a really interesting professional life. I won a contest when I was in college called the Glamour Magazine Top 10 College Woman Contest. And I up until that point, I had longed to be a writer, but I put out a magazine in high school. I dreamed after being a Nancy Drew fan of writing suspense fiction. I wrote for my school newspaper, so I thought about writing for a newspaper, and I I just wanted to be all different kinds of writers. I wrote a play that was put on in my high school, and it was only once I got to college that I realized, oh, you have to pick a lane. And so I started to really direct myself towards magazines. And after I won this contest, I got a job at Glamour Magazine and I moved up over the years and love the magazine business so much. They're just fabulous women who work in it and men too. And I made so many friends in it. And then eventually I became editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan, which at the time was the number one women's magazine in the world. And that was
Amazing.
like being in a
Yeah.
television show every single day. I mean,
Yeah.
it was incredibly stressful on the one hand because we were the leader in single copy sales, newsstand sales. But I did it for 14 years. I loved it, but the magazine business was kind of collapsing at that point.
Mm.
Or I could see the early signs of it because I was given access as a leader in my company to a lot of data. And so I knew, okay, it's all going to end. And
Mm.
so I had already thought a few years before, gosh, I don't want to give up on that one lane, suspense fiction. So I had written before my kids got up my first suspense novel, continue to write them at Cosmo, but then realized, hey, if I leave, I build up enough of foundation as an author, I could leave and do this as a second career. So that's
Yeah.
where I am. I've now written 20 psychological thrillers and mysteries,
Amazing.
and I did make it another career, and it's been very satisfying. I miss the Cosmo Beauty Closet and the
Yeah.
very generous clothing allowance, but I get to be my own boss. I get to work wherever I want. And you hang with people who, like you, don't think it's weird if you watch a lot of documentaries on Ted Bundy. So I found a new tribe.
Yes, yes. That's amazing. That was so, I guess, savvy of you to actually identify a permanent downward trend because it seems to me there can be ups and downs. And I think the
Yeah.
trick would be no, detecting the permanent down, which you did, and
Yes.
that's
And it
amazing.
was tricky because I think what was happening is a lot of people would console themselves after there'd be a drop in magazine sales overall, it would level out for a while and people would say, okay, this is the new normal. People still love magazines. Yeah, they love the internet. But I had enough experience looking at the collapse of a type of magazine from about 15 years before that were called the Seven Sisters. They were Family Circle and Good Housekeeping and Ladies Home Journal, those magazines. I saw that pattern where it would drop a certain amount, level off, and then there'd be another big drop. So I
Wow.
knew that big drop was coming. And today, a magazine like Cosmo, which when I was there sold over 2 million copies on the newsstand a month, now might sell 25,000 copies on
Oh
the
my
newsstand.
gosh.
Now they have a
Wow.
thriving website. So they've
Mhm.
reinvented themselves wonderfully with the editor they have today, a young woman in her 30s, but there's no print to speak of anymore.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is what a lot of companies, even more recently during the pandemic, is that if they did not adapt, to outdoor eating, that sort of thing, restaurants
Right,
adapting to
right.
outdoor eating, those sorts of things, and or like we still have many, many restaurants where they allow you just to drive up and they'll bring your order out to you. They still are maintaining
Oh,
that. So
wow,
anyway, that
wow.
adaptability, I think, is just
Yeah.
key for survival, it seems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and seeing it on the horizon, I think too often we end up in kind of a denial and pretending that it's not going to be as bad as we think. But I just think there's a thrill in having the nerve to pivot, and the change at first can be scary, but then all of a sudden you're in the groove and you go
Yeah.
with it. And I think there are a lot of areas in life where we have to do it. We just have to face up. Yep, got it. I'm going to have to pivot here, but enjoy the next adventure if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, besides being set partially in Uruguay, what else can you tell us about this amazing book, I Came Back for You?
Oh, thank you, Tracy. Well, it's about a woman who is living in Uruguay because she has a Argentinian uh, partner, and he's inherited this small country home from his uncle. And she's a freelance book editor. He's in the book business himself, but can work remotely from his base is Buenos Aires. And in the very first chapter, he's away and there's a knock on the door, and it's her ex-husband who she hasn't seen in 7 years. And he tells her that the person who is thought to have murdered their daughter, Melanie, 8 years before on her college campus, has had a given a deathbed confession that yes, he murdered four college-age women, but Melanie wasn't one of them. And so Bree realizes she has no choice but to go back to the United States, to this town, Cartersville, where her daughter was murdered, with her ex-husband, and try to figure out, because the police are now looking at, hey, could this guy have been telling the truth, or does he just want them to twist in the wind? But they're going to look into things again. And she wants to be sure that she does everything to figure out who the killer might be after all, because if she doesn't, she knows she's never going to be able to feel any kind of peace again. She's just begun after 8 years to feel a bit whole again after not only the death of her daughter, but her marriage
Mhm.
exploded to imploded, I guess you'd say, after the death as well.
Yeah, yeah, and just how scary would that be to, I don't know. It's like losing a child to violence is hard enough, but to
Mhm.
then learn, 10 years later that the person that you thought had killed her maybe didn't. I mean, I just,
Right.
the there would be so much emotion involved in that, and I think that you captured it brilliantly in this book. And I'm curious, how did you find and then tap into that emotional space?
Well, I've fortunately never lost a child, but I know not only from what I read, but from friends who have, it is um the wound that never heals, as a wonderful person said about grief back in the, I think, 1940s. It's the lung that you breathe through
Mm,
eventually. It never goes away. And I did read a lot. And also, I had lost two of my younger brothers a few years ago, and it was so devastating for me.
yeah.
I think I tapped into that grief, but in some ways it helped me to write about grief, because I had what they call prolonged grief, where grief lasts a long time and it never totally goes away. But mine just I couldn't. I couldn't undo it. I was so close to my brothers, and I just, I read about prolonged grief, how it
Hmm.
just, you can't seem to get a handle on it. And it was really good for me to write about grief. I found
Oh, good.
it helped, and it gave me a chance to read more about it. So
Oh,
that's what I tapped into. Fortunately, I did not have to tap into the death of a child.
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful that in the writing of this book, it helped you deal with your own grief about your brothers, like almost cathartic in a way for you. Oh, and I love what you said, whoever said that in the 40s about it's grief is the lung that you breathe through. That
Right,
is
right.
like powerful. That's super powerful.
Yeah, I think that
Wow.
it's not like other emotions where anger, like, it can burn off over
Mhm.
time. It's just becomes something in you. And I thought about this later. I didn't use it in the book, but it's like your atoms get changed. So you are a
Mhm.
slightly different person than you were before. So it was that was not unlike things I think all writers do. You you might not have the exact same experience, but you tap into an experience that is kind of adjacent. I don't know if you found this, Tracy,
Yeah.
where you have to find some emotion to start with. I guess it's a little bit like method acting to some degree. I mean, have you
Yes,
found the same thing yourself, that you
I
get
have.
into an emotion that is adjacent to maybe what the character is feeling?
I have, and sometimes just in little ways. I lost a mother-in-law, a few years ago who's just beloved,
Oh,
just a wonderful woman. And yeah, you can take some of the things that, because we were her caretakers there towards the end, and so I had a book where I had somebody was a caretaker, and it just you can, even though it wasn't the same relative, you can still kind of tap into those emotions and things like that. And yeah, and it is wonderful when you can work through those emotions in your words. It makes you think about things in a way that maybe you can't, or don't allow yourself, or just don't have the strength to do so.
right,
Yeah.
right. And at the same time, because of this genre that I write in, which is psychological thrillers, but my books are always whodunits, I don't have to, it's not traumatic to write these things, because at the same time, I'm also working on the puzzle of the
Mhm.
book, what is I also know who did it from the very beginning.
Okay.
I
Okay.
know not everyone is that way, but there are plotters out there, and I always know who the killer is and why, the motivation. And so, what helps me deal with the intensity of writing about human experience that might be close to my own is I'm having fun at the same time, leaving clues for the reader,
Yeah.
and but also red herrings, and thinking, oh, I hope I'm totally misleading them at this given
Well, you
moment.
did, yes.
Oh,
You absolutely, because I was so
yeah.
certain it was this
It,
one
you know,
person. I was so certain it was this one person, and you got me. You absolutely got me. Well, I
it's
love that.
interesting. One thing that, oh, I was just going
Go
to say,
ahead.
one thing that helped me when I first started writing mysteries and thrillers was I interviewed a couple of magicians about how they do misdirection. And I found that so helpful, because they often the magician has done the trick before he even or she starts describing it to you. So the little kerchief is already in the other hand, or the coin
Yeah.
is already in the other hand. And
Oh,
I find misdirection so interesting.
that's great. That's great. Well, I love that you gave Bree, a solid rock in Sebastian, with all of the grief and, the emotional turmoil that she was going into. He was the one person I felt that grounded her when things got really rough. Did you draw inspiration from somebody, in creating Sebastian, or is he just part of your imagination?
Well, he was part of my imagination, totally. So I usually use parts of people, but I never use whole people. So
Yeah,
he was components for me. And I guess I borrowed some of what I love about uh, not the hot-headed South American guy who's a cliche, but
yeah.
those guys who do have a certain tranquility to them. And I also like contrasting him to Logan, her ex-husband, who I also like. And, as the book goes on, Reed finds some feelings towards Logan being stirred in her, and which is only natural when, she hasn't seen him in 7 years. There
Yeah.
was a lot of unfinished business. So I have to say there were moments where I was like, yeah, I'm liking Logan here too.
It felt a little bit like a love triangle at one point. So that
Yeah,
was fun for
yeah,
me coming from a romantic suspense background. So that was great.
yeah. Do you base characters on real people yourself?
No, not generally. There might be, like you said, there might be little things that I draw from a particular personality trait or a tick or something like that, but typically no. I don't.
Yeah, though people sometimes say that they thought they saw themselves and
Oh,
they're all of a sudden they're
wishful
not
thinking
thinking too.
probably.
Yeah. Right, right.
Well, on this show, we like to talk about the story stakes. I always joke, love, death, the fate of the realm. Those are all great high stakes in a story. But what I'd like to hear more about is what was personally at stake for your main character, Bree, in this story. And there might be multiple things, but what
Yeah,
would
I
you?
think for Bree, there was so much more at stake than even some of my other characters. Bailey Waggins, who's the true crime writer in my series, Bailey might end up in danger, but Bailey's always going to be Bailey. With Bree, she puts her relationship at stake the minute she flies 5,000 miles away. And her life in Uruguay is still kind of tentative. She's committed, but part of her is still hesitant. Do I really want to live in the Southern Cone? So she puts that in jeopardy. She puts her mental well-being in jeopardy, kind of looking into this murder. She puts herself in danger, looking into
Mm,
a murder and lifting up rocks and seeing what's underneath. And I think she also puts all the healing she's done in 8 years, which has been such a struggle. She puts that at
mm.
stake too. So I don't think I've ever had a character who had so much that was on the table at risk as Reed has.
Yeah, and I think you touched on this in the book too, is that she felt compelled to make sure that this was his name Ruck? Was that the serial
Yeah,
killer?
Calvin
Ruck.
Rook. Yeah.
Yeah, Calvin Ruck. To make sure that he was or was not the person who killed her daughter, yet by doing that, she put her mental health at risk because she was going to have to relive all of that, and
Yeah.
like you said, she had just kind of come out of that huge well of grief.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, when her ex-husband Logan first tells her Calvin Rook has said he did not kill Melanie, the easiest thing would have been for her to say, he's a sadist, he's a
Mm.
monster, he's just yanking our chain. I'm not going to believe a word he said. Serial killers love to jerk the chains of police. Like Ted Bundy
Yeah.
was always saying, no, I really killed this many. No, I killed that many. And so that would have been easier for her, but she knows if she is left wondering, is the killer still out there? It's going to be
Yeah.
so difficult for her to get back on the road to full, she's never going to fully heal, but to having a life again. Because until she met Sebastian, she had kind of figured, look, I'm going to limp along. I probably
Mm.
won't have another partner. I just don't see it. And so she's she's going to lose that if unless she figures out, did he really Calvin Rock really did it, and if he didn't, who did? So that's her mission, and she doesn't want to leave the United States in little Carversville, New York,
Yes.
without knowing the truth. And so the book is both the psychological thriller of her having to go through all this, but also the whodunit of who will she figure out is the killer in the end.
Yeah, yeah. And you made her so wonderfully independent in many ways. And part of it was to keep her ex-husband at arm's length, but part of it felt like it was, her, and so I really enjoyed that part of her character too, about how independent she was. She just decided what she was going to do, and she went and did it, and
Yeah.
and yeah, no, it was
And
great.
sometimes we see the side of Brie that might be a little edgy, like you know, for the first part of the week they're in Cartersville. There's a town in Pennsylvania called Cartersville that I stole and
Oh.
changed to Cartersville, so that's why I made the mistake. But the first week, the first few days are there. Her ex-husband Logan, his girlfriend Lisa comes, and she asks him one day because he says he's trying to catch up on work since they're holed up in these hotel rooms, and she says, "Does Lisa mind being, stuck in the room?" And to herself, she says, I don't care if she's stuck in an effing mine shaft. And she kind of admonishes herself for being so bitchy. But the thing is, that's how she feels. Even though Lisa wasn't the one he was cheating with when the marriage ended, she sees and she's not perfect.
Yeah.
She's forgiven Logan, but part of her still resents that he piled on to the grief by you in his own grief cheating on her. So Brie can seem a little ornery at times, but I hope readers understand that's because of what she's going through.
Yeah, I think you probably tapped into things that us as readers were thinking as we were reading. So I didn't really see her as being all that ornery.
Yeah, oh, good, good, good. Because I
Um,
didn't like Lisa at all,
no,
the
no,
new
mm-mm.
girlfriend of Logan. Yeah.
No, no, I didn't either. Well, just to change gears just a little bit, the last question I'd like to ask you is hopefully a fun one, is what is one thing that readers might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, well, I don't think I've ever shared this before, but since you asked, Tracy, I
Yay.
I am a real nature buff. My favorite place that I've been in the world is Antarctica.
Oh,
I
nice.
love nature. I'm a big bird watcher. I'm going this coming summer to the Canadian Rockies. And I always, with almost all my characters in my psychological thrillers, I think it's all of them, they're the first name of or first or last name of the main character always has something nature in it. Like
Ah,
Bree is Bree Winter.
winter.
I
Yeah.
had a Robin. I had an Emma Hawke. And it's just a little Lake Warren in one of the books. And it's
Oh,
a little way for me to show how much I revere the natural world and how important it is to me.
oh, that's wonderful. That's a love that we share. That's great. My husband and I are going to the Galapagos towards the end of the year. We
Oh,
just
that's
finished getting the
great.
plans finalized and everything. So yes,
Oh,
we love it too. That's the reason I live in Western North Carolina now, because there's so many cool things to do here nature-wise.
oh yeah. And we went to the Galapagos years ago with our kids, and what an incredible place. You're
Yeah.
just gonna love the blue footed booby and
Yeah.
the incredible stuff you see there. And of course, Darwin started to shape his theories there.
Yeah.
And Darwin, where we are in Uruguay, spent 10 weeks on the beaches near our home as
Oh.
because the eagle stopped here, and he began to he took a lot of specimens with him. So I like to think the survival of the fittest, the thinking of his maybe began right down the beach from me.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now that you say that, I remember there was a point in the book where one of your characters started talking about Darwin and Uruguay, and then it cut off, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
right.
I want to know more, but that's just me being a
Yeah, I
nativist.
stuck
So
that in there because I've been reading about Darwin and some of his papers that he wrote when he was here. So I th thought I'd throw that in. That
yeah,
was one smart dude.
yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing. All right. Well, before we go, can you share what's coming up next for you?
Yes, I just actually got a great response from my editor on my next book, which will be out in 2027. It's called Gone Silent, and it's about a woman who is ghosted by her best friend of from college, and she doesn't know why, and the friend dies, and she is left not knowing, and so she journeys to where her friend was living with her new husband and tries to figure it out. So it's different than this book, but I really enjoyed it. And between now and when that comes out, I'll be doing a fair number of talks. It's on my website, katewhite.com, on how to write your own thriller for anyone who doesn't just want to read them, they'd like to write them too.
Oh, that's great. No, that's it sounds amazing. The new story sounds amazing. I love the title. I can't wait to see what the cover looks like. I think Thomas and Mercer they do an amazing job with the
I
covers.
love
So
this
it's so
cover.
beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I
So
just
pretty.
wrote to my editor today because it's in a giveaway with like a bunch of books, and I it just stood out. I said, "Well, let me thank you again for this
Yeah.
cover."
Yeah, yeah, just amazing job. Well,
Orange is
folks,
the new red, I guess you could say.
is it? Okay. All right. Well, you're ahead of the trend there, I guess. That's great.
Oh,
Well, folks,
Tracy, wow. Thank you
yeah,
so
yeah.
much for this.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. I've been like I mentioned to you before, I've been looking forward to talking with you. Folks, be sure to order I Came Back for You today. As Kate mentioned, visit her website, katewhite.com. Her social media links are there. Sign up for her website. You'll see her book tour and things like that there. This has just been such a pleasure. I hope you have a great tour.
Great. Thanks, Tracy.
All right, take care now. That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlyn.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.